Right, karibu sana. This is Morning Cafe. Let's talk matters legal affairs. And in October 2021, a British soldier, a sergeant, as a matter of fact, stationed in Nanyuki, walked down the aisle with Kuki Wasson, who is a Kenyan in an Islamic marriage known as nikah. What Noah Ravikula, the soldier, did not know is that 2 years later, this marriage will come to haunt him as he is charged with bigamy in a UK court. So according to him, however, he says that he did not understand whatever was happening in this particular marriage, the Islamic marriage as of that. So what is bigamy, and why is this important for you to actually know this? Sele Sakiro, an advocate of the High Court, joins us to expound on this matter. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
How is everything taking you before you begin?
Now we are doing fine, because, with the current stakes in the country, a lot of legal matters, people are suing each other left and right.
And it's good for you guys.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's, it's a word that is thrown around. Many people they hear it, but they don't really understand. Bigamy, bigamy, bigamy. Normally when we actually say bi, bi really represents two. So
yes.
People will be people actually think that bigamy is the other word for, just having, two people.
Two wives.
Yes, two wives.
Two
yes,
husbands.
Yes, two husbands. But in real sense,
yes.
What is bigamy?
Now, bigamy in a simpler word, or a simpler meaning that can be understood by the local person, bigamy is when a person that is already married, before divorcing or maybe absolving or dissolving the previous marriage, marries another person, meaning you have two subsisting marriages for an individual person, clearly recognized by the laws of Kenya that you married person A, and then you proceed and marry person B. So the offense you are committing here is an offense called bigamy, in a simpler word. Yes.
It cuts across the man and also the woman.
Yeah, it cuts across. It's not specific to an individual. Whether you be a man or a woman, but then you already have a subsisting marriage legally recognized by the Republic of Kenya or by the law of the land.
Right.
And then you proceed to contract another marriage and formalize it. Then you are committing an offense under the Kenyan laws, offense known as bigamy. Yes.
So under the Kenya's legal system, how do you prove bigamy?
Now, Section 171 of the Penal Code, that is where the offense of bigamy is indicated in the law. Proving bigamy is not difficult. It is quite easy.
Okay.
Because what you need to do is to present the marriage certificate. Remember, since 17th August 2017, when the AG published a legal notice requiring every marriage in the land to be registered, that as at now, you can only prove marriage through the marriage certificate. You have to present a marriage certificate. So, how then do you prove bigamy? Present to court the marriage certificate of this person in his or her former marriage. Then you claiming the person is married again through this subsisting marriage. Present the current marriage certificate. If you do, then it will be very simple for the court to decide that this person is committing the offense known as bigamy. Now, moving a notch higher, there can be difficulty in providing marriage certificate for the second marriage. Right. Because we assume that the person who is lodging this claim for bigamy is either the previous husband or the previous wife.
Okay.
Now, getting the next marriage certificate can be a tall order because they will not easily give it to you. But then we have the access to information, which you can probably probe the Registrar of Marriages, maybe to do that. The next approach you can take is probably to look for the local authority.
Right.
Because if you're married, you have to carry out yourself in the society as having been married. So the local authority, like the chief, the area chief, the DC, the ACCs, you contact them, the members of the public where this person currently lives, then they can give you leads into whether these people are carrying out themselves as husband and wife. Then from there, they can now make steps. However, it is very difficult for a formal existence of bigamy, because if you go for registration of the second marriage, the registrar has to confirm that you are not currently in any impediments to contract the second marriage. Now, these impediments to marriage, of course, we have them in the Marriage Act,
right,
where you're marrying a person of the same bloodline, same bloodline. It's not allowed except for the Muslims. You have a subsisting marriage. Those are impediments to marriage. Now, how can you remove these hard lines or impediments? Through divorce. You make sure that you carry out successful divorce. Get a decree nisi from the courts, proceed to the registrar to dissolve that marriage, and you be given, of course, the divorce certificate. When you present the divorce certificate together with a decree nisi and an affidavit of no impediment to marriage, which will be given to you by your advocates, then the registrar, the registrar approve you for remarriage.
So that means, for example, if you're charged with bigamy and you're standing in the court of law and the court pronounces itself, how many years, by the way, is if you're charged with bigamy, how many years is it?
Now, bigamy is a felony. The range that the court can give is a discretion.
Okay.
Between 3 years to 10 years.
Right.
Yeah, discretionary.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say now in between that. And then, because at this point, as you're telling us, to elevate that, have the divorce papers. But then, now later, after the court has charged you, now later on, after that day, you actually now get the divorce papers. Will the court resign its decision to charge you?
No. Once an offense is committed, it is not washed away by individual corrective measures, but the legal corrective measures. You stole and you steal no more. The fact is you stole. So the court will be rendering itself on your previous decision of theft, whether you have reformed or not. So, what are the requirements of the law concerning bigamy as at the time that you committed the offense? If you reform later, that is up to you. But the fact is, you already committed bigamy. So the court will not absolve you by the mere fact that while the case of bigamy is proceeding, you decide to do what? To formalize divorce. You see?
Right.
That is where now the CJ's proposed amendments to remove bigamy from the penal code,
right,
decriminalizing bigamy, and bring it back to civil, where now the offense will now be dealt with as a civil wrong, as opposed to a criminal wrong.
Right. Just to follow up on the whole bit of marriage. So there are instances, and very rare instances, where someone might be married, but then without their knowledge, they actually didn't know that this happened. Probably they were not maybe in the right state of mind, and then later on, they come to the realization that I am actually married to so and so and so.
It's actually very interesting, the question you're putting in, because remember, in our society, marriage is a contract between two parties.
Yeah.
And there is no contract until you are in your right state of mind. Now, coming back to your question, we know very well that in any legal jurisdiction, ignorance to the law is no defense. You cannot go to court and tell the court that I didn't know. That is no defense. No argument about that.
Right.
Because you are presumed to know the laws of your country. All of them, actually. And by the way, something funny is that even we lawyers, there are certain laws that we do not know.
You guys hang around with the Constitution everywhere.
Of course, we hang around with the laws that are most commonly broken. But a majority of them, like I was discussing with a fellow colleague, and I asked him, are you aware there's a Witchcraft Act? And he didn't know that there's a Witchcraft Act in this country.
We should look for a day and actually discuss that.
Yeah. So you see, if somebody comes to court and say that I did not know that there is an offense known as bigamy, and so I should be absolved from this offense, I will commit it no more, the court will not absolve you.
But if this person was married without their knowledge, again, it might have happened in some very dubious ways, and person A and person B got married. Person A, maybe they were not in the right state of mind, and later on, they come to actually realize and are informed that you are married. They try to have the divorce procedures start, but then person B does not want, to divorce. And so this definitely might take quite a lengthy time. Person A gets attached to someone else, let's say person D, and they decide to, let's get married too. So does that again still apply to what you're saying, matters ignorance?
Well, when you bring in the fact that without his knowledge, and you're presumed that you can only get married in Kenya when you attain the age of majority. And the age of majority is described by the Age of Majority Act to be 18 years in the land.
Right.
18 years, it is presumed that your mind has developed properly to make your own personal and right decisions. So when you come to the court and then you tell the court that, no, I'm 18, but I'm still not in my right state of mind. And again, when you look at the social contract of marriage, you rarely will find somebody marrying an insane person. Of course, those are outlawed also. You find yourself in indecent acts with imbeciles. The law calls them imbeciles. You find yourself, just go out with the mad person. You've taken them, you have marriage certificates here. Those are null and void marriages in the land, because you must only take somebody by consent. To an extent that penetration without consent is called rape. So we will be actually upgrading this offense from bigamy to a sexual offense known as rape. And if it is for a child, then you talk about defilement.
Defilement, yeah.
And so it means that in the first place, the court has to pronounce itself on whether the second marriage is valid at law.
So, Wakili, now in the case of a traditional kind of set marriage, does it mirror either in the traditional or also in sort of a religious, maybe even the kind of Islamic marriages? Does it also mirror the same? what the law, as you're saying, on Section 171 of the Penal Code stipulates?
Now, the marriage laws in Kenya are quite vast. We have different types of marriages.
Right.
Here we are talking about, I think our discussion is geared or focused on Christian marriage, because it is the only marriage of just but one man, one woman, to the exclusion of all others. Now, but for, we call them customary marriages.
Yeah.
Customary marriages can go to as many wives as possible, to the point where now you contract a Christian marriage. Beyond there, you can now not proceed.
Okay.
But so long as you do not contract any Christian marriage, customary marriage, you can have as many wives as possible. But if any one of your wives gets married to another man, bigamy is committed. Because although there are 10 or 20 wives belonging to you, or rather married by you, because this day they say we do not belong, married to you. And then one, wife number 19, goes and contracts another marriage. Because even the customary marriage, the marriage is considered as between that individual woman and you. So if she lives and contracts another marriage, then it means it is between that individual woman and the other man. Now, what happens is that at that point, this woman has committed bigamy. The man, too, has done so because the woman is already is marrying a woman that is married.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It's a double-edged sword.
So it does not only affect, as now in our earlier case, the person A as well as person B. So person A and B got married, but then person A maybe refused the divorce. So person B got attached to person D. So person D and B also.
Yeah, it is actually
are charged with the bigamy.
It's actually upon Kenyans to know whom they're living with. Yeah.
So you have to do the whole due diligence. And see this person is actually married or not.
And not only due diligence, proper due diligence. It must be proper. Move to registrars, the Register of Marriages.
Okay.
Talk to the local authorities. Talk to her friends. You know, her friends will tell you. Huyu Masi, tulikula keki. Now she's here again.
Tukamletea hata gas na nini.
Tukamletea gas na mwiko, na kijiko. You know, and then she's here again organizing another marriage. So, what people presume is that divorce shall have taken place.
Naturally. And I love the fact that you brought that up, because when I started, I mentioned to you this case. And I remember last month, at the end of last month, it was quite a conversation that Kenyans were having. So in October 2021, a British soldier by the name of, I'm trying to get his name here, Noah Javikula, got married to one Nika, or rather, not Nika, but Cookie Wasson in Kenya. So Noah is a British soldier and actually a sergeant stationed in Nanyuki. And so 2 years later, a UK court charged him with bigamy. So in their own, according to the UK laws, so this can be charged even for 9 years. So in Noah's, rather in now the Kenyan woman's case, Cookie Wasson. So what happens to, because you're saying this is a double-edged sword, cuts across for both of them. So now in cases where it's a foreign, kind of marriage, let's say person A was coming from, let's say, Uruguay, a country outside, somewhere in Europe, and person B is from Kenya. Both countries have their own laws when it comes to bigamy, and their own maybe interpretation. It'll also tell us about that. But then, so what happens to, because person A from Uruguay might be charged in a Uruguay court for bigamy. So what happens to person B when it comes to bigamy?
Now, I don't know whether you have heard of something called extradition, where somebody commits an offense in country A and runs and hides in country B. The authorities in country A will request through international law country B to bring the person who committed the offense back to country A.
So that's person A to
face charges there.
Right.
Now, but most countries, because of the complexities of the laws of extradition, they would wait for you. Just write for you the offense and suspend the file. The moment you arrive at the airport, you're captured. So
if now for context of that, so that you understand.
Yes.
So you have, I had mentioned Uruguay and Kenya here.
Yes.
So this person A, let's call him Charles, for example.
Yes.
So Charles and let's say Mary. So Charles is from Uruguay and Mary is from Kenya. So Charles got married to Mary in Kenya, but then Charles is also married to a Uruguayan there some years back. So Uruguay will have to wait for Charles to come back to his country.
No, I said depending.
Oh, depending. Okay.
But Uruguay can request Kenya to deport Charles back to Uruguay to face the bigamy charges in Uruguay. But Uruguay will have a tall order requesting Kenya to take their daughter to Uruguay to face the charges in Uruguay. That can happen. Because if the Kenyan lady wasn't aware of the Uruguayan laws on bigamy, and the Kenyan lady also wasn't aware that this guy was actually properly married, the other side, well, it will bring a whole huddle of issues. But it will be difficult for you to charge Charles under the Kenyan marriage laws, because we talk about lex domicile. I mean, the law of the land. The law of the land where you did the offense. Charles didn't contract the marriage under the Kenyan law. The first marriage.
Oh, the first marriage, okay.
Yes, under the Kenyan law. Charles contracted the first marriage under the Uruguayan law. But if Charles comes back and formalizes a second marriage here in Kenya, and the Kenyan authorities learns of his first marriage in Uruguay, then the Uruguayans do not want to handle this matter within their land, or they have not criminalized it, or they have made it quite civil. But Kenyan authorities want to act because there's a Kenyan boyfriend, or rather a Kenyan husband of the Kenyan girl who has moved the Kenyan courts. Then such case can be handled here in Kenya.
In Kenya?
Yes.
So how will it be treated?
Now, we have marriage by locals and marriage by foreigners.
Okay.
So long as their marriage was registered by the registrar of marriages, the second marriage. And then it means that, number one, because you know the offense of bigamy breeds another offense. It means that, number one, this person lied to the authorities, gave false information. Because I told you, for you to successfully register your marriage with the registrar, you must confirm to the registrar that you have no impediment to marriage. Meaning, you do not have any subsisting marriage. That is number one. And if there is one, you have formally divorced. And you produce the divorce papers. Without that...
And before you continue, so just to add on to it.
Yes.
For example, person, we'll still use the whole Charles and Mary bit. So Charles is from Uruguay and all that. or rather, let's actually now localize it vizuri. So Charles and Mary are both from Kenya, and probably now, let's say Mary was married to someone some years back, but then it came to be that this person, let's say person C, passed away. They had not divorced yet. They just separated. But then along the way, person C passed away. How does that play along?
That's a valid marriage.
So they're still married?
They're still married, but then the other partner is dead, right? The only ways you can, reduce your impediments to marriage is through divorce or death of a partner.
Oh,
so
okay.
by death of a partner, you only produce a death certificate.
So Mary and Charles are safe?
They are very safe.
At this point?
Very, very safe.
Right.
You only need to do an affidavit of no impediment to marriage, which will indicate that your former husband is now deceased, and you have a death certificate with you. Yeah.
All right. So now, because we've gotten to understand how all this can be treated, and explaining it to us well, and you had mentioned about how CG Kome presented the whole bills, and so these bills are the Penal Code Amendment Bill 2023, as well as the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment 2023 to the National Assembly last year. So this basically seeks to change it from civil law to, or rather from criminal law to civil law. First of all, explain to us how this process came to be and the kind of impact it may have if it is from criminal law to civil law.
Now, criminal law is actually very strict. It is the branch of law that seeks to exclude an individual from the mainstream society into secluded places called prisons. So if you do an offense under criminal law, you have committed the offense against the state. Actually, the person to whom you've committed the offense becomes the first state witness. So it is not about you and the offender. It's about the state and the offender. So you'll always see Republic versus. But then the offense was not done against William Ruto or against whoever.
Yeah.
It was done against Silas. So Silas forms the first state witness. On the civil end, it is Silas and the offender.
Or just between you two people and...
So the court makes a decision between us.
Right.
The other end, the court makes a decision between the state and the offender. So, at the end of a civil case, you will be given monetary compensations.
At the end of the civil case now.
At the end of a civil case.
Right.
At the end of a criminal case, you can have both monetary and imprisonment or a fine,
Right.
or all. But at the end of a civil case, there is no imprisonment unless you defy the order or the judgment of a civil case. That is when you can be cited for contempt of court, which may lead into imprisonment. Or if you fail to measure up for the compensation that have been awarded by the court, then you can be cited for civil jail. But that's not a criminal jail. With a civil jail, even once you come from the jail, your data is not entered in the, you call it good conduct. It's just a civil jail. So,
So that means at the end of it, you'd still be safe.
Yeah, you still be a little safe. You call it a little safe, right?
Comparing to the
in comparison to criminal,
because this your data goes now to the goes to the good conduct.
Yeah, for the criminal, your data has to be in the good conduct certificate, where the criminal records part
showing that you committed
this offense.
This bigamy has been in law since 1930.
Exactly.
Do you feel like it has been unfair all these years? I mean, it was brought in by the during the colonial era. Do you feel like it has been an unfair? Okay, fine. I mean, we changed the constitution back in 2010 and had a whole new constitution. Over the years, there's someone who, and actually, just to have the impact of this. So according to State of Judiciary and Administration of Justice Report Act, shows that this act of whole bigamy rose by 226% between 2020 and 2021. You remember, this particular period?
COVID.
Was the COVID period.
Yes.
The whole pandemic period.
You warm yourself where you find yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
So this means that it became a huge occurrence for people.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, those are reported. Mm-hmm. There's so many that are not reported. Yes. And the unreported ones are then the higher ones. During this period, there was this lockdown where the government put restrictions. Don't cross here, don't cross here. Just confine yourself where you are. And of course, many things happened during that period. And some went away with other people's wives, as the report has now indicated. And so, these are some of the acts that can escalate bigamy. Confinement. Confinement, maybe like the lockdowns we had, is a whole act of God, force majeure within the country, that restricts people's movement back to their husbands or back to their wives, and they take it for a very long time. Sometimes even working far from your wife or husband. You may end up learning later that your wife has a child with another married man or another man, or your husband the same.
This is some of the occurrences that might lead to bigamy.
Yes.
But then now my question is, since 1930, this is so many years later, almost how many? Has it 90 plus now?
Yeah, because 1930 to now is around 90 plus.
Yes. 90 plus. Isn't it unfair, even for the Kenyan legal system?
You know, our laws are largely borrowed from the British laws.
Yeah.
Every act that you find, maybe post 2000, that is where you can find a few acts that are literally Kenyan, but majority are borrowed. Some of them, you know, the British, while they were ruling their vast realm, they were just taking laws from here, put them there.
So it was copy-pasting.
Copy-pasting. Copy-pasting. Like, I think one of the oldest laws in the country is the Societies Act, which was taken from India, of course, the British India, in 1886. That was very, very long. Even Kenya, before Kenya became a British protectorate, the Societies Act was working in India, and then it was brought into the country. Now, it now begs on the country's parliament to review most of the laws and to bring them to speed with our current societal needs.
So it means right now the MPs, bear the biggest branch to actually ensure that this changes to...
Exactly.
But then now I'm curious, because, okay, fine, maybe... and
that is why you see the CJA is trying to assist the legislature by bringing this bill, telling them that, hey, it is high time we handle bigamy in a civil way, as opposed to a criminal way.
Right. And just to remind all those who can be part of this conversation, talk to us in case you're actually in this, because we were seeing in data, there are quite a number. They're reported quite high. There were about 31 reported cases between 2019 to 2020. And plus, it really goes on. There are so many unreported cases. You're probably in this, you're probably wondering, am I in this? You can always be part of this conversation. 0795 045864. Tupigie simu tulize all these questions. Wakili here will be answering them for you. So I'm curious, in a scenario where the parliament actually approves, and now this changes from being a criminal offense to a civil offense, where now both of you just solve this matter. na inaishia hapo. You've told us, so now what happens? Actually, so what will the treatment be if it's going to be a civil case? Now, in our example of Charles and Mary and person C.
What the CJ wants is to tell Mercy to go back to her house, as opposed to telling Mercy to go to prison. You see? Reason like that. The CJ wants to tell Mercy to return to her husband, or tell John to return to his wife, as opposed to telling John to go to prison. How will prison help here? Prison won't help.
Because you told us it's more than 5 years. So
yeah.
I'm wondering, you're there and you're in prison, and you say all this because of love.
And let me tell you, if bigamy was to be strictly followed, we'll be having the highest number of divorce rates. Because after I take my 5 years in prison and I find that Mercy took me to court, will I go back to Mercy?
No.
I just come out of the prison gates and I look for my lawyer. Please file these divorce papers. No. And that is why the CJ is now rooting for civil. Let's discuss, why did Mercy have to leave her husband for James? Then these are the things that family courts, because these if it's taken to the civil, then it will be handled by the family courts.
Right.
And the family court will have to really dip itself into the nitty-gritties.
Right.
The reasons why Mercy had to leave John for James.
Right.
And if these reasons can be sorted out, then Mercy can be told to go back to James. But if they cannot be sorted out, then in the most bare minimum that the court can give, the court can advise Mercy to file for formal divorce and proceed with James or John.
Okay, here's a question for you.
Yes.
Someone says, you could always text us on our SMS number 22047. So someone says, you don't mention their name. Hey, that topic on bigamy, and some fire emojis there. Now, if someone has been on come-stay marriage with a lady and even has 4 kids, does not want to leave that mama kids, but still the man finds another lady and wants to marry her legally, what happens in this case?
Now, remember, bigamy is marriage, not adultery. We have to get the two differences here.
Yeah.
If Silas legally married to somebody, then without formalizing the second marriage, we have kids. What I have done is called adultery. I have not committed bigamy. But the moment I marry the second woman with whom I have kids, then I have committed bigamy. You see? And that is why you asked me, how do you prove bigamy? I said, produce the first marriage certificate, produce the second marriage certificate. You see that? But adultery is not a criminal offense in the country.
Right.
But it happens.
Oh, yes, it does.
It happens. And it is one of the reasons that can lead to a divorce. Remember, Kenya does not just give divorce.
And now, actually, for that, because the biggest question here that many Kenyans would really have is, I tried to file for divorce with, we had the whole case of Charles and Mary. So Mary says, I tried to divorce, and also, so there's Mary and let's say Joseph. So Mary and Joseph got married, let's say 5 years ago, but then they separated, all these years. And Mary tried all this time to file for divorce for Joseph, or rather with Joseph. But then Joseph is very adamant and says, I'm not giving you a divorce. I'm not. What legal steps can Mary take?
Well, it is not for Joseph to give the divorce. It is for court to give the divorce.
So Mary has to take Joseph to...
Yeah, Mary has to file a petition in court, petition for divorce. The family court will look at the viability of the petition. Because like I told you, what God has put together, let no man
put asunder.
And remember, our judges are humans, and they also go to church. So
the instances where this divorce cannot, the court cannot grant the divorce.
Exactly. There are instances where courts will be reluctant to issue divorce and prefer to take you for counseling. Try and see if you can come back together.
But isn't that shooting yourself for the court shooting itself on the foot? On one end, this court has refused to give Mary the divorce and grant the divorce between Mary and Joseph. But then later on, Mary will be charged with bigamy with the same court because this court refused to grant her divorce.
No, the court will not directly inform you that it has refused. Mm-hmm. It might delay, and you see matters hurts. Even divorced people sometimes get back together. You see, they divorced yesterday, and they are back together in Miami Beach.
But in this case, I mean, it's 5 years. It's a longer time.
Yes.
Can the court now just grant the divorce?
Now, the court does not grant divorce based on the number of years you have stayed together. You must prove the viability of divorce. And how do you prove divorce? That within your marriage you have suffered cruelty. Number two, within your marriage there is elements of adultery. And number three, there are elements of desertion. Your husband or your wife has left you for a period long enough. Remember, in Kenya, if you are not seen to your family for 7 years, they can file for presumption of death, and they get a death certificate.
So Mary cannot tell the court that, hey, Koti, judge, mapenzi lisha between the two of us. None of that you've mentioned, he was very faithful and everything, all that was perfect. But then it just reached a point that love just, and
you're still
faded away.
You're still living together in the same roof.
And so it reached a point you separated now after 5 years.
No, if you separate for 5 years, that is desertion.
Okay.
The person has deserted you. So divorce will be granted.
All right.
But if you are living together,
after separation,
like I have a situation that I was reading on the papers where a husband and a wife living together in the same room. Remember, they had a big house together. So what they did, they split the house. They are using the sitting room as a common room. Then there is kitchen A and kitchen B. John, don't step in kitchen A. That is my kitchen. Jen, please let me not find you in kitchen B.
Kila mtu na chumvi yake.
Bedroom. Kila mtu na chumvi yake. Living under one roof. Wanaonana. It will be difficult to prove separation. It will be difficult to prove desertion. It will be difficult to prove unfaithfulness or adultery. It will be difficult to prove cruelty here. Because when you're being beaten, you can't live with the person in the same vicinity, live around same roof. So in such cases, it will be difficult for the court to grant divorce.
Right.
But if you are separate, you're living apart, even if it is the same neighborhood, John has left the house, John is in the house nearby. And he's done this for long enough time. Could be 3 years. Because you cannot file for divorce in Kenya unless your marriage is existing for 3 years. Remember, there was a bill that was shot down by Parliament, where the bill sought divorce after 1 year. And divorce by consent. And then you can consent to part ways. And Parliament shot it down. Remember, there's a question you had brought in, but then I've forgotten, but it was bringing a very good aspect. Courts and the law has to maintain the fabrics of the society. Otherwise, the society risks breaking down. And we are told that family is the basic structural unit of a society. It rises from the family up to the social organizations like the presidency, the judiciary and everything, we all begin from family. Laws begin from family. Father makes rules of the house, must be in my house by 6 p.m. Those are rules of the family. So if the family is broken, then remember how chaotic this society is going to be, where we are going to have one man having 1 million children because he spread his seed everywhere. And then 1 million men in the society are spreading their seeds everywhere. So you ask this individual, who is your father? They do not know. Or maybe 1 million people sharing the same father.
So the law is there to...
I mean, the law is there to just make sure that there is some order,
right.
Social order.
Right. Because of time, and well, it's a whole interesting kind of conversation that I'm pretty sure many Kenyans are relating to. Really, the final one before I get your final thought, and you can tell us briefly on this, because you say there are reported cases and unreported cases. So this means in a reported case, someone went to court to file this case, right? So does now because we are eyeing the whole civil case, should now the court offer a whole situation where this person who came to report and whoever he's filing against just sit down and talk about it?
That's what judiciary wants.
Okay.
Yes, that's what judiciary wants. Let people talk. We are encouraging Article 159 to see, that is alternative justice system, where the traditional modes of dispute resolution is encouraged, you see, so that the government or the law, the courts, gives two parties a second chance to reason out their differences,
right,
as opposed to helping one of the parties by excluding him from the society. And by the way, if Kenyans actually knew that bigamy exists, we would not be talking about 31 cases. There would be so many cases.
Thousands plus.
Thousands plus. Because remember, when you are aggrieved with your partner, some even end up murdering.
Oh, yes.
But if they knew...
Just to clear the path so that...
Yes. If they knew that they can approach a police station, get an OB, get the other party arrested and charged in a court of law, how many cases would be having? Not 31.
So this means now even for a civil case, the person who might even want to, or the Charles and Mary might actually now sit down with this person, and it's going to be a whole soft landing for even for their marriage.
Exactly. Okay. It's going to be, the civil case is going to really assist in progressing dialogue in the society.
Right.
Where like the Maasais do.
Okay.
The Maasais really are the strongest traditionalists in our country. They sit down, clan heads are called, meetings are put, and this whole thing is solved. And you find the family going back to each other and living well off, peaceful, so many years ahead.
Fantastic. In a minute, give me your final thoughts. To people who don't really understand this, many Kenyans out here, just an advice to them as your final thought. Family, my thoughts are, family is actually a contract between two parties, consent, two consenting parties. Right.
And so any dispute can still be sorted out by consent. And consent is actually bringing somebody into a level where they can understand you. In a setup where every person is up against the other, there will be no meeting of minds. But if you sit down and discuss your issues, you will end up healing your marriage, you will end up healing your family, you will end up healing your own self. And so, in my parting shot, I would like to encourage Kenyans to understand that our society is dependent on how organized our families are. Mm-hmm. And so we should be able to encourage dialogue, we should be able to encourage mediation. Visit your parents, visit your elders, church members, your pastors. Let them into your, of course, cautiously into your disputes, and let them help you as a family to go back together. And we lawyers should be the last resort.
Obviously, with the whole fee. Cheers for that.
Of course, cheers.
Nimeshukuru sana.
Thank you very much.
Spot on. Asante sana for sticking around. This has been Matters Legal Affairs. As we just giving you tips on how maswala ya pale legal affairs inafai kuwe. I'm usually Stanley Nyarungita. Asante sana wakili.